Hi everyone, this is Madhumati, Assistant Professor, Department of Food Technology, SNS College of Technology. So today in this lecture video, let us see about the sedimentation, filtration and the centrifugation. These are all the set of unit operations that are being followed in any food processing industry. So going into the title, so first one, sedimentation. This is a term where the sedimentation means to enhance the filtration process by removing the particulates that are present in any solution. So it is like, otherwise it is called as the clarification. So it is by the process of letting the suspended material that settles by gravity. So these material it can be either particles or such as clay or any form of slits that are present in the water. So we can give an example like the sand and the silt can be carried in suspension in any river water, and on reaching the seed bed deposited by the sedimentation. So we are just removing the suspended particles from the water by means of separation process or by gravity separation. So that process we called as the sedimentation. Next, so in this image we can clearly understand what is a process of sedimentation. So in a beaker that contains the water and some of the few insoluble impurities. So after sometimes the insoluble impurities get settled down under the beaker and the clear water at the top. So this process called as the sedimentation. A few examples of sedimentation we can tell, like tea leaves that are settling down on the cup of tea, or by taking a sample of pond water we can see the soil settles down at the bottom, and water treatment plants use the method of sedimentation to filter out the unwanted material particles or the materials from the unclean water. So decantation is also like another process of sedimentation only, where two immiscible liquid mixture or solid and the liquid mixtures are separated. So principle behind sedimentation is nothing but, in a solution, particles whose density is higher than that of the solvent, so they sink, and the particles that are lighter than it will float on the top. So this is the basic principle behind it. The greater the difference in density, the faster they will move and settle down. So it may mostly it will depend upon the objects of the various size, that is ranging from large rocks in flowing water to suspensions of dust and the pollen particles to cellular suspensions. So even sometimes if we can notice, small molecules will be having a stronger force to produce significant sedimentation. So this is the principle behind the sedimentation process. So there are three types of sedimentation. One is the dilutes, non-feculent free settling, that is every particle will settle on its own, that is independently it gets settled under the type 1 sedimentation. Type 2 is nothing but, that is also dilute and the flocculent, that is the particles can flocculate as they settle down. And the third type is the concentrated suspensions and the zone settling, hindering settling. So that is the sludge thickening process. So in this three types of sedimentation process, we can conclude that there are many different types ranging from the dilutes or the non-flocculent or the flocculent types. Based these, how these types are segregated is nothing but based on the principle behind sedimentation only. So flocculent, so as I mentioned this, that is like flocculent and non-flocculent. So flocculent is nothing but that it is like loose, that is the particles that are not tightly held, that are loosely held, we call it as the flocculent, and non-flocculent is the opposite word of it. So there are few factors affecting sedimentation. So based on these factors only the principle of sedimentation will apply. So first we have to look for the particle size, density and the concentration of the particular particle. The fluid viscosity is also major role, and the other factors that affect the sedimentation rate are like the shape and orientation, like convection current in the surrounding fluid, and the chemical pre-treatment of the feed suspension. If, for example, if the suspension that is not water, or if it contains any chemical substances, then based on that only the particular particle that is present in the solution will react. And so there is a general increase in the rate of sedimentation with a increase in temperature. So if that is a 20-degree rise in temperature, typically the rate of sedimentation will be doubled. So this is about the sedimentation. Next, filtration. So filtration is also a commonly a mechanical or any physical operation that which is used to separate the products like solids from the fluids by interposing a medium through which only the fluid can pass. So this is like basic example is filtering of any coffee or tea. So this is a technique is called as the filtration, where we use a medium for filtering the liquid and the solid separately. So the fluid that passes through that medium, that we call it as the filtrate. And the filtration is the best established and the most versatile method for removing the insoluble from the dilute streams like the fermentation broths. So in this picture we can easily understand the filtration process, how the separation of the solids from a suspension in a liquid by means of any porous medium or any screen which retains the solids in the screen and allows for the liquid to pass through the screen is called as the filtration. So initially in the picture they are giving feed. On the top of it the feed is going inside, and there is a filtration membrane where solid particles get settled down in the filtrate, and then at the top we get a filtered liquid that we called it as the filtrate. Okay, next is the steps involved in this filtration. So basic steps are like draining the liquor, filtration, filling with wash water, washing, then draining that excess wash water, opening, dumping, and then finally filling it with the slurry. So next topic is about the basic principle behind. So what happens during the process of filtration is nothing but, as I told, we use a filter medium. So since the filter medium is permeable only to the fluid, so we can understand that only the fluid will pass through the filter medium, whereas the solutes or the solids will get deposited on the medium. That is, it will retain the solid particles and permits only the fluid to pass through, which is called this as a filtrate. The volume of the filtrate collected per unit time, that we indicate as the dV by dt, is called as the rate of filtration. So at a particular time, how much amount of filtrate is collected at the bottom after the process of filtration only we can calculate the rate of filtration. So as this filtration proceeds, the solid particles that are accumulated on that filter medium, that forms a packed bed of solids. So that solids which are retained in the membrane, we call it as the filter cake. See, as the thickness of the filter cake increases, the resistance of the flow of filtrate will increase, rate of filtration will gradually decrease. So from this we can understand that a batch filter is operated either at a constant pressure or a constant rate. Some of the important types of filters used in the processing industries are bed filter, plate and frame filter, leaf filters, and the continuous rotary vacuum drum, continuous rotary disc type filters, and continuous rotary horizontal filters. So these are the different types of filters. So these types will vary depending upon the types of fluids that we are going to handle to get the filter cake and the filtrate separately. So last process is nothing but the centrifugation. So centrifugation is nothing but the technique of separating the components where the centrifugal force or any acceleration causes the denser molecules to move towards the periphery, while the less dense particles move to the center. So centrifugation is mainly by the use of centrifugal force only this process will take place. So mainly here the process of centrifugation will depend on the perpendicular force created when a sample is rotated about a fixed point. So centrifugation is nothing but a technique where we apply centrifugal force inside the particular centrifugal chamber where the particles will be suspended in air. So at the time of suspension we can separate the the lesser dense particle and the the denser and the lesser dense particle. That's what the first point they say. Due to the force on the acceleration, the rotation, the denser particle will move towards the periphery while the less dense will move to the center. So that which is weightless will be rotating in the center, which are more weight will move towards the periphery. So the principle behind, so in this itself we can understand by the action of centrifugal force how the principle behind the centrifuge works is, if in a solution particles whose density is higher than that of the solvent, the particles that are lighter than it float at the top. The greater the density difference in density, the faster they will move. So basically in the centrifugation process, density of the particular solution or the particles plays the major role. Okay, so some of the few applications of centrifugation is where it is applied is to separate two miscible substances, purification of mammalian cells, to separate the chalk powder from water, or to remove the fat from the milk to produce a skimmed milk. That is, skimmed milk is nothing but the fatless milk, and separating the particles from air flow using some cyclonic separator, so etc. So the other list of examples are given in this centrifugation applications. Thank you.